Hey everyone. First, thanks for joining this session. I am Korina Edwards. I am a demand gen and growth marketing leader, formerly the president at Mattermade. I have had the opportunity to work over the last couple of years with some really awesome brands, focusing on product-led growth, sales-led growth, in the middle, sales assist, all of the in-between. So super excited to share this session with you guys today and kind of get into some of the terminology and then just some strategies on how to think about it. All right. So product-led growth, I think, is something that you're either like laughing at because it's just another marketing jargon that we all made up, kind of like ABM, or that it's been around for a while. But the truth of the matter is that there are different growth motions when you're talking about driving people through the product or going from your traditional sales-led tops-down motion. So just generally for those who want just like a quick way to understand product-led growth, it's basically just using your product as the main vehicle to acquire customers and then using that product all the way through the life cycle from acquisition to making them evangelists of the product. I think one of the biggest misconceptions with product-led growth is that means, you're using your product to acquire these customers, get them in, engaged, adopted, and there is no sales team or sales interaction ever. I think that can be true for earlier stage product-led growth companies, but eventually, right, every product-led growth company needs to add a sales team and will eventually move up market. And there's two different versions of how you incorporate a sales team, and we'll get into that. But why would we always need to move up market? And it's because higher contract value, more money, more revenue. And then from a buying process perspective, when you do start moving into selling some of those mid-market enterprise accounts, there's obviously friction points that occur when you're trying to land those accounts that wouldn't happen from more of like an SMB self-serve perspective. So sales-led and sales assist, I think I definitely love approaching things from a teaching perspective. So I think these are something that sometimes become interchangeable. They're really different. So not really different, but they are different. Sales-led is going to be your traditional top-down approach. So pulling in net new customers into a sales conversation, your enterprise sale, outbounding, prospecting, things like that, that we're all probably pretty used to for this conversation. Sales assist, when you're talking about incorporating it with product-led growth, is helping users that are already in the product, right? So they've signed up for your free trial, they're signed up for freemium, and we're using the sales assist motion, the sales assist team, to convert them to paying customers. In the traditional top-down approach, the life cycle was more, they become a lead, we nurture them to become a buyer, and then eventually they're a user of the product once they bought. This product-led growth motion really flips that to they become a user first, then they become a lead based on what we'll talk about later, which is more of like a trigger at PQL. And then they become a buyer. Why sales assist is important is because depending on where you look at the stats, approximately 40% or more of people that actually sign up for this free trial or for a freemium product actually never come back. And then something to note similarly with the top-down approach, right, is that not every person that signs up for the product should be followed up by a sales assist team and kind of nurtured into monetization. Same way that somebody who becomes a lead from downloading content or what have you shouldn't just immediately be followed up with sales. So similar in that respect. So the transition, you're product-led, you're doing great, you're getting users into the product. Eventually, especially if you're like a horizontal company where pretty much anybody could get value from your product, you have to start thinking about how you can start hyper-focusing on that cohort or that group of people or buyers that will actually turn into revenue for you at a large scale. So the transition into this is really to start small. So obviously this is more like a company initiative. Don't go out and hire a huge sales team and then start pounding those people that are coming into your funnel from the product. But start small, hire one sales assist person, or somebody on the marketing team can act like this, or somebody from the inbound team can act like this. And then make sure you have a clear view for your baseline, right? So you want to be able to measure, does this sales assist actually help conversion rates? The goal for Sales Assist is to eventually to get them to convert faster and at a higher rate. So making sure you have that baseline for conversion rates. Obviously, goes without saying, get super clear on your ICP so that you can build a top account list and really hyper focus the Sales Assist team, or even from like a sales-led perspective on who we're going to be focusing on. That's pretty, goes without saying. Get that account list into your CRM MAP so you can actually track engagement with the brand and the product. So how are they interacting with the website, with the content that you're putting out? Then are they actually signing up for the product? And then once they're in the product, was that engagement or adoption of the product look like? Aligning messaging with the sales team. So understanding different cohorts, especially if you do have like a product that isn't going to be in a specific vertical and have multiple different personas, making sure that the sales team is really aligned with that messaging and clear on what that messaging looked like for each cohort. And then the Sales Assist team will really try to educate and consult to get these people to convert versus pitch and sell, which is much more of your traditional outbounding. So they do feel more like a customer success situation. And then empower your sales team with data and cohorts, which we will get a little bit more deeper into later. And then I think really getting clear on the focus across teams on like, are we focusing on expanding, right? So if we have more of the land and expand model. So if we have 5 users from Nike in our product today, is our goal to really go and get the rest of the marketing team at Nike on the product, and then eventually the rest of the org, or is it mostly activating, right? Like we have somebody from our top accounts, we have users from our top accounts in the product, but they never came back to the product. So let's focus our Sales Assist efforts on getting them back into the product and then eventually seeing value. So first step is really defining and incorporating a PQL. All of you are marketers here, so you're familiar with the MQL process. This is similar, but a little different in that these are obviously product qualified leads. So product qualified leads can be leads that have gotten to the aha moment in the product. Aha moment is activation. So these users have activated in the product. And then a combination of product interest, usage, and behavioral data, obviously very similarly to an MQL. These are things that you need to largely define as a business that makes sense to you, with the goal of, triggering a PQL so that somebody from the Sales Assist team or the sales team can follow up with them. So you want to make best use of their time. So that's how you define what that means for your business. These can also be hand raisers in the product. So somebody is trialing the product or they've triggered a certain premium feature. These can be things that can also signal for your sales team to interact as well. So yeah, get really clear on what activation means. This is important for both the sales team and what triggers your PQL for them, but also for your marketing campaigns, right? Like the ultimate goal for us from a product-led perspective is not just acquisition and getting them into the product. It's acquisition and getting the right people into the product, but then acquiring those right people and then getting them to activate for the product. So getting clear on what that means for your product is really important for everything that you're doing from a sales and marketing perspective. And that activation metric can come from your data team most usually, or whatever product analytic tool you have that correlates back to the likelihood to convert to a paid customer. Things to think about is like, do you actually have the right user as a PQL? You can have individual buyers that come in or individual users that use your product and are using it every day and love it, but they'll never be a buyer. They're SMB, or they are just using it for a very specific individual use case that can't really scale. Obviously, PQLs convert at a much higher rate than MQL. This is something that's not news to us. For this audience, MQLs typically convert at less than 1%. I think we're all aware of that and working on better ways to do things. Product qualified leads can be that, right? They're adopting the product, they're getting to see and feel the product, so they convert much higher rate than MQLs. And they go beyond just saying, this is somebody who falls in our ICP and is searching for the problem that our product solves. So intent. They actually show that they'll have adoption for the product before we're even talking to them, before they're even paying for the product, which will lead to higher customer lifetime value, which we know is important for efficiency and ultimately better for the business unit economics. some text to use for this, because this can get obviously pretty intricate and complicated with all the different data variables and firmographic, demographic, things like that. Mad Kudu is something that you can use to kind of automate this process. Obviously, there's some AI learning in there, but definitely something that I would recommend. And then moving into more of the product qualified sales is where you incorporate the product qualified accounts. So product qualified account is much like your marketing qualified account, is going to be orgs that are within the ICP with users in your product. So we've decided what our account list should be within our ICP, and now we're seeing that we actually have users within these accounts in their product. The PQI can be defined by similarly ICP fit, demographic, so are the right titles, what is the buying group within these target accounts that we're focusing on, and then the one that's specific to product-led growth is like account penetration and product usage. So account penetration is basically another threshold that you need to define as a data team, as an org, right? When a number of employees from that account is using the product and it reaches a specific threshold, sometimes that can be 10%, 7%. Once we see 7% of users within the one of our target accounts using the product, that would be a trigger for a product qualified account. And then product uses across users. So that can, if we want to get even more stringent, it could be, we want to see 7 to 10% penetration, and we want 7 to 10% of those people using the product to be at an account engagement of XYZ. So this can really help. And obviously these are indicators of how product qualified accounts or leads can be more successful than just your general engagement. Use enrichment tools like Clearbit to enrich data, especially if you collect personal emails. So a lot of product-led companies that I worked with, you don't want to force work emails, especially if people are just trying to try the product before they even show any type of like company intent. You can use Clearbit to still capture some of this like PQI triggering information, tools like Endgame, Pocus, High Touch, Census. And then ultimately create playbooks for the accounts the sales team can run with once they do have a product qualified account. So getting into some strategies, self-serve with Sales Assist will not do it all, which is why always eventually you'll see more of this move to upmarket, where there will be a sales-led or a top-down approach that still needs to be incorporated. And that is mostly just because, you know, at the self-serve level, you're really appealing to some of the SMB, maybe even the lighter weight mid-market that can just go ahead and purchase through self-serve. But with enterprise and mid-market, you're getting into like security needs or specific product requirements that are needed. And so that requires more of like a sales-led approach. For top-down, I think some of the things that I've seen just working with other companies that seems pretty obvious is that, especially if you've always been trying to true product-led, you're really focused on like getting users into the product. And then that's where like the real work starts in terms of getting them to activation, getting them to monetization. Add the CTA of an actual commercial conversion. So like talk to sales, contact sales, request demo, whatever that should be, have that on your website, right? Especially if you're just now incorporating this, so that people understand, especially if you're starting from a marketing perspective, to engage more of the buying or the decision makers from the buying group to the website. Like they need to have a place to go. And then start testing new messaging in channels. So the people that you were going after that were going to be individual users and evangelists of the product are not the same users that are going to be the decision makers that don't necessarily need to get into the product and touch it and feel it, but they need to understand, like, is this the right purchase for our functional group or organization, things like that. So messaging needs to change. And that can be less obvious than people think. And so I think having a really strong strategic framework to take to market to understand what are the things that we need to resonate with to capture this new audience. For Sales Assist, obviously the pathway is kind of like user signs up, they go through an onboarding sequence. Things that you can do is have like a strategic chatbot experience with like intercom for assistance. So if they're in their free trial or they're in their freemium experience and they don't know how to do X, Y, or Z, there's easily a chatbot available for them to talk with a product specialist, even if that might be somebody who's more sales oriented, to like book an onboarding session. And that's where the consultation comes in. That's where the sales assist comes in, because the goal is to get them to paid. Removing friction to the aha moment is familiar for all of us from a sales-led perspective. It's just at a different place. So when we're getting them into the product, we've acquired them, we want to get them to activation as soon as possible. So how can we remove friction from that conversion? So similar things like not making excessive form fields, not making the form too long, creating like an easy onboarding experience and not making it like overwhelming. Those are things that we want to try to reduce so that they can get to that aha activation moment as quick as possible. Again, this can feel like customer success and support, because the goal is for a transaction. It is to get them to free to paid. It's still sales. And then the goal here is, especially if they are enterprise accounts or they are enterprise mid-market accounts that are in our account list, we want to show them and talk to them about, consult with them about what are the benefits of actually going this path and getting a consultation and purchasing an enterprise plan versus just having everybody at your org kind of use individual accounts if they want to use the product. So trying to show the value there. Make evangelists out of existing highly engaged users. So you're just really connecting with them while they're in the product. And then obviously programmatic email and product guides, tips, things like that. And then we go into ABM, which is more of your tops-down approach. So getting that universe of accounts into your CRM so that the sales team has a clear sales and marketing and product knows very clearly who are our top accounts for this quarter, this year, what have you. And then creating a dashboard that for the sales team specifically, that isn't just ICP, but it's also product usage engagement that shows a full story instead of just, we have individual users in the product. They might be all for the same account, but here's their usage. But let's look at the account view of how many users are in the product. What is the product usage overall? What is the engagement overall? Is it like heavy in one product and one functional group in the org or not? I think this is so much easier said than done. You really have to have your shit together from a product data perspective, from a CRM MAP integration perspective, from actually getting these dashboards to show a full story. So this is not an easy lift by any means, but it can really unlock a lot of powerful velocity in the sales funnel, but then also just strategic planning, account plans for the sales team. And then you can see how that transitions into some of the marketing campaigns, right? Where if we know what our universe of accounts is, our top accounts are in the CRM, we know that we're lacking a lot of engagement, right? Or we're lacking number of users from a certain account, then we can get really strategic from a marketing perspective to say, hey, our top 5 accounts have a lot of users, but not a lot of engagement. What are some of the things that can work with the sales assist team, in product team, things like that to get them to be more engaged, to get them to see that value? And then vice versa, if we're not seeing enough number of users from these accounts, how do we actually get the right users into the product and start trialing? And then similarly, right, like you want to think about the buying group. So we want to understand that the buying group is people who will actually use the product in hypothetical, but then there'll also be people who will not necessarily use the product every day, but will be the decision maker and is really interested in making sure that this is the right purchase for the group or the org. So having campaigns that speak specifically to that decision maker, that have the right CTA, the right offer, the right journey for that decision maker, and then sit similarly for the people that will actually be using the product and how to make them influencers of the overall purchase. And then sales assists can come into, like, if you're getting TQLs in an account, but they're not the right buyer, how can we start to leverage sales assist from like an outbounding perspective, or like a programmatic email perspective to say, hey, 5 other people are using this product in your org, why don't you jump on it too? So that can be some of the messaging, obviously a lot more strategic than that. At the end, account-based selling and then creating demand for these accounts, for your product in these accounts, creates higher revenue, higher contract value. All right, and then just to wrap it up, why do we care? Why does this matter? Lower CAC, higher lifetime value, bigger contracts, faster time to revenue, and then overall it's a better customer experience. Cool. Thank you guys so much. I hope you found this valuable. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. And then also happy to have conversation with the community. But thank you guys so much. All right.